Okay, in this video I'm going to be showing you a sample chart of a 59-year-old female who had done quite a bit of traveling in the previous 2.5 years or so, and she wanted to get a baseline reading. The charts are very clear that we get back from trace elements labs. And you'll see the headings here. We have nutritional elements, toxic elements, and a little beneath that we have additional elements. And what we are looking at down here are the levels. So our reference range is the range that we like to see our levels. So you'll see here magnesium is in the reference range, copper is in the reference range. But that is not a statement that's written in stone, because we've got to look at the significance of mineral ratios. So for example, the calcium to magnesium ratio, you can see this is high calcium to magnesium ratio. This is a high sodium to potassium ratio. So these are the nutritional elements, meaning the minerals that most of us are familiar with: calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, copper, zinc, phosphorus, iron, manganese, chromium, selenium, boron, cobalt, molybdenum, and sulfur. The toxic elements are antimony, uranium, arsenic, beryllium, mercury, cadmium, lead, and aluminum. And although we have a reference range here and this individual's levels are within that reference range, personally I would like to see there be nothing in this range. Now, this person was a smoker, had a bit of cadmium in there, and there are other reasons for cadmium as well. But the mercury is a bit concerning to me, especially I would like to see this be in 0. There not be anything for mercury. Arsenic is a little concerning also. Okay, let's go down here to additional elements. You can see that these are also minerals that are found naturally on the planet and in the human body. What we're looking at here is a couple of them that are off the charts, however, not within the reference range. So we've got bismuth, rubidium, and tin are all off the chart. And here's a chart of the significant ratios that we discussed above. Calcium to phosphorus, sodium to potassium, calcium to potassium, zinc to copper, sodium to magnesium, calcium to magnesium, and iron to copper. And it will be interesting to see what these ratios mean a little further on. It's important that we look at the ratios because we see levels on the chart and some of them look like the numbers are a little bit wacky, but we don't want to pay too much attention to those, especially not yet, because it really is the ratio, what one mineral is doing in its relationship to another mineral in the body. And you can see the intensity of the mineral relationships in the following chart. Hair is used for mineral testing because of its very nature. Hair is formed from clusters of specialized cells that make up the hair follicle. During the growth phase, the hair is exposed to the internal environment such as blood, lymph, and extracellular fluids. As the hair continues to grow and reaches the surface of the skin, its outer layers harden, locking in the metabolic products accumulated during the period of formation. This biological process provides a blueprint and lasting record of mineral status and nutritional metabolic activity that has occurred during this time. The precise analytical method. Understanding the graphics. Nutritional elements. This section of the cover page graphically displays the test results for each of the reported nutritional elements and how they compare to the established population reference range. Values that are above or below the reference range indicate a deviation from normal. The more significant the deviation, the greater the possibility a deficiency or excess may be present. Toxic elements. The toxic elements section displays the results for each of the reported toxic elements. It is preferable that all levels be as low as possible and within the lower white section. Any test result that falls within the upper dark red areas should be considered as statistically significant, but not necessarily clinically significant. Further investigation may then be warranted to determine the possibility of actual clinical significance. Additional elements. This section displays the results of additional elements for which there is limited documentation. These elements may be necessary for biochemical function and/or may adversely affect biochemical function. Further study will help to reveal their function, interrelationships, and eventually their proper therapeutic application or treatment. Significant ratios. The significant ratios section displays the important nutritional mineral relationships. This section consists of calculated values based on the respective elements. Mineral relationships, balance, is as important, if not more so, than the individual mineral levels. The ratios reflect the critical balance that must be constantly maintained between the minerals in the body. Those three ratio charts that we do have here, we've got significant ratios, toxic ratios, and the additional ratios, which is not really applicable to our individual hair tissue mineral analysis. Another thing that the hair mineral analysis tells us is our metabolic type. You can look at the metabolic type as the rate at which your body is performing metabolic functions such as digestion and elimination. This section of the report will discuss the metabolic profile, which is based on research conducted by Dr. D.L. Watts. Each classification is established by evaluating the tissue mineral results and determining the degree to which the minerals may be associated with a stimulating and/or inhibiting effect upon the main energy-producing endocrine glands. These glands regulate nutrient absorption, excretion, metabolic utilization, and incorporation into the tissues of the body, the skin, organs, bone, hair, and nails. How efficiently each nutrient is utilized depends largely upon proper functioning of the endocrine glands. Sodium. Your sodium level is elevated above normal. This is not uncommon for this particular metabolic type, as high sodium in the slow metabolizer, type 2, is frequently associated with an acute or short-term reaction. This reaction may be due to an emotional stress or an alarm reaction as a result of a biological stress, such as an inflammatory condition. Conditions associated with high sodium: arthritis, infections, viral, nausea, allergic reactions, hair loss, fluid retention, gastritis, transient infections, depression, hyperaldosteronism, and inflammatory disorders. Factors that may contribute to high sodium: high sodium intake, vitamin megadoses, stress, physical or emotional, toxic metal accumulation, some medications, and drinking softened water. Note, it is highly recommended that foods and food products that contain high levels of sodium be avoided. A limited listing of some of these foods can be found in the dietary section of this report. Now, I would like to say something here. It has been my experience that the sodium that is dangerous to the cardiovascular system and other systems is the sodium that you find in processed food packages and in salt that has been bleached and processed. When you're using sea salt, especially Celtic sea salt, I'm not too keen on Himalayan pink salt, but I am very keen on sea salt. When you use that salt, it doesn't seem to have the same effect in terms of an inflammatory response or even bloating. I have recommended to clients with high blood pressure to switch from the salt that they've been using for many years, like Morton's or Red Cross, or those salts that have been highly processed, and switch over to the gray Celtic sea salt for many less problems. High sodium magnesium ratio. This ratio is above the normal range. The adrenal glands play an essential role in regulating sodium retention and excretion. Studies have also shown that magnesium will affect adrenal cortical activity and response, and increased adrenal activity results in decreased magnesium retention. The sodium-magnesium profile is indicative of increased adrenal cortical function. The following symptoms may be observed: anxiety, muscle cramps, palpitations, and increased perspiration. High calcium-magnesium ratio. Calcium and magnesium should always be in a proper balance to one another. If this normal equilibrium is upset, one mineral will become dominant relative to the other. In this case, calcium is high relative to magnesium, which may be indicative of abnormal calcium metabolism, resulting in excessive deposition of calcium into the soft tissues. In addition, even though the magnesium level is not low at this time, excess calcium relative to magnesium will suppress magnesium function within the body. Muscular tension. Calcium and magnesium are important elements whose roles include involvement in muscular response. When not in a normal balance, an excess of tissue calcium relative to magnesium will frequently lead to constant muscular tension and contraction. If the muscles surrounding the urinary bladder are in a state of tension due to this error in mineral metabolism, the volume capacity within the bladder will be reduced. This condition may contribute to an increased frequency of urination due to the restricted size of the bladder. Calculus. A deficiency of magnesium relative to calcium may allow calcium to precipitate out of solution, which can contribute to calcium deposition into the urinary tract and gallbladder. Over an extended period of time, this profile has been correlated with increased tendencies toward kidney and gallstones. Magnesium and osteoporosis. Studies have shown that magnesium supplementation is effective for increasing bone density in women. Results of these studies have revealed that better results occur in restoring bone mineralization with magnesium supplementation than with the use of calcium. For instance, a study involving a group of osteoporotic women given magnesium supplements for 2 years resulted in the prevention of fractures and a significant increase in bone density. Mineral metabolism and vitamin B6. A deficiency of or increased requirement for vitamin B6 leads to alterations in the metabolism, utilization, and balance between calcium and magnesium. Calcium retention will increase, and the excretion of magnesium will also increase when vitamin B6 is lacking. Therefore, an increased need for vitamin B6 may be indicated by your current HTMA pattern. Toxic metal levels. All current toxic metal levels are within the acceptable range. Every person is exposed to toxic metals to some degree. The retention of these toxic metals, however, is dependent upon the individual's susceptibility. The balance of the protective nutrient minerals within the body in relation to the heavy metals can frequently be the determining factor to this susceptibility. As an example, the accumulation of lead will have a more detrimental effect upon body chemistry when sufficient levels of calcium and iron are not available. By examining the toxic metal levels in relation to the protective minerals, the extent to which the heavy metals may be involved in abnormal chemistry can frequently be seen. Selenium-mercury ratio. Mercury, a toxic metal, causes increased oxidative damage to cells. Selenium is known to protect tissues against these adverse effects by binding with mercury, thereby rendering it less damaging. At this time, a low selenium to mercury ratio may be indicative of increased free radical production. Zinc-mercury. When zinc levels within the body are sufficient, zinc is able to produce an antagonistic or protective response to the adverse effects of mercury. However, when zinc is low in relation to mercury, the protective action of zinc upon mercury may become markedly reduced. Although the current mercury level is within the acceptable range, if this pattern becomes chronic or worsens, some minor symptoms or adverse reactions associated with mercury may occur. Dietary suggestions. The following dietary suggestions are defined by several factors: the individual's mineral levels, ratios, and metabolic type, as well as the nutrient value of each food, including protein, carbohydrate, fat, and vitamin and mineral content. Based upon these determinations, it may be suggested that foods be avoided or increased temporarily to aid in the improvement of your biochemistry. Slow metabolism. Dietary habits may contribute to slow metabolism. Low protein, high carbohydrate, high fat intake, and the consumption of refined sugars and dairy products have an excessive slowing down effect upon metabolism and energy production. General dietary guidelines for the slow metabolizer. Eat a high-protein food at each meal. Lean protein is recommended and which should constitute at least 40% of the total caloric value of each meal. Recommended sources are fish, fowl, and lean beef. Other good sources of protein include bean and grain combinations and eggs. Increased protein intake is necessary in order to increase the metabolic rate and energy production. Increase frequency of meals while decreasing the total caloric intake for each meal. This is suggested in order to sustain the level of nutrients necessary for energy production and decrease blood sugar fluctuations. Eat a moderate amount of unrefined carbohydrates. Carbohydrate intake should not exceed 40% of total daily caloric intake. Excellent sources of unrefined carbohydrates include whole grain products, legumes, and root vegetables. Avoid all sugars and refined carbohydrates. This includes white and brown sugar, honey, candy, soda pop, cake, pastries, alcohol, and white bread. Avoid high purine protein. Sources of high purine protein include liver, kidney, heart, sardines, mackerel, and salmon. Reduce or avoid milk and milk products. Due to elevated fat content and high levels of calcium, milk and milk products, including low-fat milk, should be reduced to no more than once every 3 to 4 days. In fact, you can eliminate milk altogether. Milk is a completely unnecessary food for adult humans, and it creates mucus in the body, which is an issue for the lymphatic system. So I'm starting to see that this is a good recommendation. You know, there are some high benefits in using pure whey, especially for the immune system, and especially people that may be in a weakened condition. But for relatively healthy people or people that want to really clean up their lymph, I would suggest avoiding milk altogether. Reduce intake of fats and oils. Fats and oil include fried foods, cream, butter, salad dressings, mayonnaise, etc. Fat intake should not exceed 20% of the total daily caloric intake. Now, this does not include avocados and coconut oil. Reduce fruit juice intake until the next evaluation. This includes orange juice, apple juice, grape juice, and grapefruit juice. Note, vegetable juices are acceptable. Avoid calcium and/or vitamin D supplements unless recommended by physician. The following high sodium foods should be reduced until the next evaluation: table salt, white bread, potato chips, canned. High sodium and salt consumption. Reduction of sodium intake, if high in the diet, is suggested at this time. Consumption of table salt should not exceed 1/2 teaspoon per day. And I would say that that is also the recommended dosage of the Celtic sea salt that I was discussing earlier. Maybe you can go a little higher, but by all means, please stop using table salt completely. Methionine-rich foods. The following foods are a rich source of the essential amino acid methionine, which supplies sulfur to the cells for the activation of enzymes and energy metabolism. Sulfur is also involved in detoxification processes. Toxic substances are combined with sulfur, converted to a non-toxic form, and then excreted. The following foods may be consumed liberally during course of therapy: bass, trout, cod, turkey, flounder, round steak, mackerel, short ribs, perch, sirloin, and pumpkin seeds. The above list of foods are also high in glutamic and aspartic acid. These amino acid proteins help to improve tissue alkalinity. And special note, this report contains only a limited number of foods to avoid or to increase in the diet. For those foods not specifically included in this section, continued consumption on a moderate basis is acceptable unless recommended otherwise by your doctor. Under some circumstances, dietary recommendations may list the same food item in the to eat and the to avoid categories at the same time. In these rare cases, always follow the avoid recommendation. Conclusion: this report can provide a unique insight into nutritional biochemistry. The recommendations contained within are specifically designed according to metabolic type, mineral status, age, and sex. Additional recommendations may be based upon other supporting clinical data as determined by the attending healthcare professional. Objective of the program. The purpose of this program is to reestablish a normal balance of body chemistry through individually designed dietary and supplement suggestions. Properly followed, this may then enhance the ability of the body to more efficiently utilize the nutrients that are consumed, resulting in improved energy production and health. What to expect during the program. The mobilization and elimination of certain metals may cause temporary discomfort. As an example, if an excess accumulation of iron or lead is contributing to arthritis, a temporary flare-up of the condition may occur from time to time. This discomfort can be expected until removal of the excess metal is complete. Diet summary page. This page may be removed from the HTMA report and used as a quick reference dietary guide. As this is solely a summary page, please refer to the dietary portion of the report to obtain more detailed information on why a particular food item is listed in the foods to avoid or foods that may be increased section. For those foods that are not specifically mentioned below, continued consumption on a moderate basis is acceptable unless recommended otherwise by the attending healthcare professional. Foods to avoid until the next evaluation and foods that may be increased in the diet are included in the report. The following recommendations should be taken only with meals in order to increase absorption and to avoid stomach discomfort. Metabolic type. Slow metabolism, type 2. The patient, classified as a slow metabolizer type 2, is experiencing parasympathetic dominance with increased adrenal cortical activity in conjunction with low thyroid activity. Often the result of an acute stress reaction or inflammatory condition, this pattern may result in periodic energy fluctuations followed by fatigue. Comments. Arteriosclerosis and magnesium deficiency. Studies have found that dietary magnesium intake is frequently found to be low in individuals' blood sugar disturbances and arteriosclerosis compared to control groups not having these conditions. Magnesium deficiency relative to calcium indicates poor calcium metabolism. This patient's pattern indicates that a tendency exists for calcium deposition into the soft tissues, including the arteries. Osteoarthritis. High calcium to magnesium indicates a trend towards soft tissue deposition of calcium. This can result in hypertrophic osteoarthritic development. Atherosclerosis. A magnesium deficiency relative to calcium indicates atheromatous development. The patient has a high calcium to magnesium ratio, which may be a predisposing factor toward atherosclerosis. Calculus formation. When the calcium to magnesium ratio is high, a relative magnesium deficiency exists. Magnesium is important for normal calcium metabolism. A magnesium deficiency relative to calcium may cause calcium to precipitate out of solution, contributing to calcium deposition in the urinary tract and gallbladder. Vitamin B6 along with magnesium aids in preventing calculus formation as a result of calcinosis. Limiting the intake of sodium is also suggested at this time. Sodium may be contributed to by drinking water with naturally occurring high sodium content or by the use of some water softeners. The patient's water can be sent for analysis. Meanwhile, have the patient discontinue the use of water known to be softened and temporarily switch to bottled water. My preference is distilled water or really good spring water that you know is coming from a fresh and clean mountain spring. Okay, the next section is insomnia. Insomnia, characterized by going to sleep but awakening frequently, is associated with an increased magnesium requirement. This person, the person who tosses and turns at night, even though he may be unaware of it, could be suffering from an increased need for magnesium. So it looks like all of the indicators are pointing toward magnesium supplementation. Osteoporosis and calcium. Even though high tissue calcium is present in the slow metabolizer, an osteoporotic condition can still be a potential risk. Increased parathyroid activity will increase bone resorption and decrease calcium solubility. Therefore, calcium that is removed from the bone may not be entirely eliminated, resulting in a trend toward osteoporosis and calcinosis of soft tissues. Osteoporosis and magnesium. Studies have shown that magnesium supplementation is effective for increasing bone density in women. Results of these studies have revealed that better results occur in restoring bone mineralization with magnesium supplementation than with the use of calcium. For instance, a study involving a group of osteoporotic women given magnesium supplements for 2 years resulted in the prevention of fractures and a significant increase in bone density. And this is really good news for people with osteoporosis, because we certainly don't want to be taking those very dangerous drugs that are on the market. I really have nothing to do with those things. So the recommendation for magnesium here, and with all the other indicators from this woman's test, I mean, it's safe to say that she needs magnesium, and I appreciate the fact that Trace Elements Labs gives us the importance of these things and links these particular supplements that determining are out of balance. And here are your contraindications, which will be specific to each individual hair tissue mineral analysis. It is suggested that additional supplementation and or intake of the following nutrients and food substitutes, if any, should be avoided by the patient until reevaluation. Boron, and there's an explanation as to why boron should be avoided. Dietary suggestions. The following dietary suggestions are defined by several factors: the individual's metabolic type, mineral levels, mineral ratios, as well as the nutrient content of each food, including protein, carbohydrate, fats, vitamins, and minerals. Based upon these determinations, it may be suggested that foods be avoided or increased temporarily to aid in the improvement of the patient's chemistry. Yes, that's what we like, improvement in our chemistry. And at the very end of your report, a protocol for supplementation. You can see you have 30-day program and the price, 60-day program, 90-day, and 120.